So I'm going to go ahead and jump in and get started. So welcome everybody. I'm so happy to have you here with me this afternoon. This is the Break the Cycle Healing Circle. And I'm going to be sharing, as I mentioned, we're going to be starting off with me sharing a few things with you, including some of the reasons that you may be stuck in your healing and moving forward and continuing to be thinking about your ex or thinking about somebody who hurt you, or really stuck in frequently feeling triggered into painful emotions that just take you out of your life. So I'm going to be sharing some of the reasons that you may be stuck, 5 key steps to help you in getting unstuck. So you're going to want to be taking notes, grab a pen and paper if you don't have one. And then I'm also going to be sharing the #1 thing that will allow you to be free from triggers, from ruminations, and to actually also, what I think is really important is to magnetize what you want into your life. So I'm curious, how many people here are feeling like they are wanting something else in their life? Either a feeling like more joy or more peace. Or maybe you are wanting a wonderful new relationship or partner. Or maybe you're feeling like you're not living on purpose and you would like to find, like, why the heck am I on this earth? And I want to be able to find that purpose. So let's talk about why you may be stuck, why you may not be feeling that peace, why you may not be feeling that freedom and joy that you want in your life. So one of the things that I've heard from people is that they get stuck in the research phase. So knowledge is great. So I love to learn. I think a lot of you know, I've got a background in biology. I love learning. I'm sure you do too. And you may have just dove in and wanting to understand everything that occurred to you that you have experienced. I have to say that when I first learned about gaslighting, it changed my entire life. Yeah, I got a thumbs up from Edith. I'm curious, for you listening, and for the rest of you here, did you experience that? Did you you learn about narcissistic abuse, maybe, if that's what you experienced, you learned about gaslighting, and all of a sudden, your whole life makes sense? Yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up. Couple thumbs up. I have to scroll through because I don't have you guys up in a gallery view. Yeah, right? It's like your whole life makes sense and it feels so good. And so then we're like, oh, I want to understand more about this, and I want to understand more about this. And, knowledge is great and it's helpful, and it provided us with that really good feeling. But when you are researching, when you are learning about the narcissist, right? You're learning about gaslighting, you're learning about what narcissistic personality disorder is. You know all about flying monkeys, you know all about love bombing, you know what to look out for so you don't end up with a narcissist again, those kinds of things. When you're in research, where is your focus? Your focus is on the person who hurt you. Your focus is on the ex, if it's an ex, but maybe perhaps it's somebody else who hurt you, right? Yeah, Lori says it's on the other person. Exactly, right? When you're researching, your focus is on the other person. You understand their behaviors. You understand their personality disorder. You understand why they're controlling you, or at least how they're controlling people in their lives. So there's a question that needs to be asked that people often don't, that takes the focus away from the narcissist and actually gets you to that place of healing. Knowledge is power, right? And so something, if knowing about something is enough, then life would be super easy, right? If all we had to do was learn about things and then they would magically happen, then life would be very easy. I would have the perfect, I don't know, 6-pack. I've never really wanted a 6-pack, but at least, a fitter, trimmer body or something like that, right? So if, for example, you want to have that really fit physique, then if understanding about healthy eating, understanding how to work out, if that helped you, then that would be as far as you needed to go. And the understanding is important, right? So I had a friend my friend Lisa, who was really motivated to get in shape. And she went to a boot camp class. I wonder if any of y'all have ever been to one of those fitness boot camps, right? You like do a circuit of different workouts. And she's totally brand new to fitness. And she tried to do this circuit in this class. And the personal trainer, and one of the little things that you went through, suggested to her that to do lunges. You're supposed to do lunges. And she was like, I don't know what a lunge is, right? So if you don't know what a lunge is, you can't do a fitness class, right? So from that perspective, knowledge is important. You have to know a little something. If you didn't know that your ex is a narcissist, then you're going to interact with them as though they are not a narcissist, which is, as you probably know, a very different way of interacting. So knowledge is important, right? But it's not going to get you from knowing how to eat healthy and knowing how to work out isn't actually going to get you to that fit body. So what is it that you need to know in order to get out of research, right? So first of all, if you're in the research phase, the number one thing is start shifting your focus from your ex and start putting that attention onto yourself. And there is a question that you want to ask yourself that so many people aren't asking, and that you won't find anywhere in the research. So here's that question. So write this down so that you can think about this if you haven't already, and really sit with it and let it gel even after we leave here today. So the question is, why were you with a narcissist? Or why were you in a painful, that toxic relationship if it's not a narcissist, but it's abusive in some other way? There is a reason. There is a reason that you were in that relationship. So we're going to come back to that. What is that reason that you were in that relationship? So that's research phase. The other thing that I hear people talk about that they really get stuck in their healing is that they feel triggered. Either they still have a connection with their ex, and because you have kids or something, so or maybe you're still in court. I hope you're not still in court, but maybe you're still in court, right? We're going to talk about court later today too. How to stop those high conflict divorces. There actually is a way to stop that craziness. Or it may just be that, you are driving past the places that you used to spend time with this person. Maybe you're going to the same grocery store, right? And you're driving to work, and it happens to be the same way to get to your ex's house. And now you're thinking about your ex, and now you're at work and you can't work because you're thinking about your ex. Has anyone experienced that? Like you're thinking about your breakup or that past relationship or that pain that you've experienced so much that you can't even do the things that you're supposed to be doing each day, like thinking about work. Put a me in the chat box. Oh, hi, Frank. Put a me in the chat box or give me a thumbs up if you can't even work or take care of your kids because you are triggered into a painful emotion. Edith says sometimes, yeah. Joy says me, right? So that is another place that that people get stuck in. So, if this is you, if you're somebody who finds yourself being triggered into a painful emotion, what are those triggers costing you? I know I used to get migraines all the time. I very rarely get migraines anymore. When I have a migraine, I can't function for days. I was talking with somebody this morning actually who is doing court through Zoom, which is a blessing. Let me tell you, it's one of the benefits of our situation, right? Having to see your ex in person. But she would say, even with being there on Zoom, and be like a 1 hour session, court hearing type of thing, and then she would be in pain for like emotional pain for a week, where she would just be upset and thinking about it and couldn't really function and take care of her kids. So when we're triggered, losing time with our kids, that's something you can't ever get back. And you're also potentially causing them a trauma because they can see that you're not emotionally available for them, and that causes them a certain reaction. If you have your own business and you're in brain fog all the time, money is just flying out the window because you can't do the things you need to do to run your business. I remember when I was going through the divorce, it was on my mind so much, and I had a job, and I was working a different job at that time doing the biology work, but I was constantly like terrified that I was going to get fired because I was so distracted, and I knew I was distracted, and I'm like, there's no way people aren't noticing. Anyone here afraid they're going to lose their job because they just can't pay attention the way that they're supposed to? So one of the things that we want peace of mind, right? We're talking about that peace of mind earlier, is to be able to get out of that space where you are triggered all the time. It is absolutely possible to move through life in a way that you are not constantly being triggered into these painful emotions that are affecting your life in all these other ways. They're affecting your health, they're affecting your kids, they're affecting your job, right? People, you may have tried, I'm curious actually, what are some of the different things that you may have tried if you're struggling with triggers, struggling with ruminations, thinking about your ex all the time? Go ahead and pop in the chat and let me know, what are some of the things that you've tried? And while I'm waiting for that to come through, sometimes there's a delay. I'll go ahead and share some of the things that I've heard. Therapy, talk therapy has its uses for sure. And I know quite a few people have tried that. EMDR, Joy, yeah. EMDR is a useful tool. Joyce, I know you mentioned you're still thinking triggered quite a bit, and it's affecting your job, right? So you've tried EMDR, you've tried therapy, and you're still dealing with triggers and ruminations. Meditation, I love to meditate. Great resource, great thing to do. Maybe not helping you with your triggers and your ruminations. Yeah, walks in nature, Jean. Oh yeah, I have to get out in nature like every day. Literally every day I have to get out in nature. EFT tapping, yeah. So many great resources that help us heal in lots of different ways, right? So healing is multifaceted, so many different things that can help us. But if you've tried these things, you have tried these things, and you're here, so there's still something else that's missing for you, right? Often it's because these things that you've tried, these modalities, these other tools, they're not asking the right question. And you're not being guided to look at the thing that will actually stop your triggers. So often what I've found is that some of the things that people try or that people use can be a top-down approach. So, talking, for example, is a good example, talk therapy, right? It gives you an understanding, and you're working through these top layers. But what's actually happening is that there is something deeper for you that's causing you to keep being triggered, causing you to keep ruminating, right? And it's that deeper thing that you want to get to. And so if you've tried some of these other approaches and you're here today because you haven't gotten quite to the level that you want, it's because there's something you may have been looking at these top layers and not actually asking, being guided to, or being told to ask this question that's going to get you to the deeper part of the thing. Rosemary says, is working on looking into the subconscious mind, releasing the beliefs, right? I think you may have been the one that mentioned that earlier, releasing the beliefs that cause the negative behaviors and changing them into positive beliefs. Oh, that is a powerful statement, Rosemary. Releasing the beliefs that cause the negative behaviors and changing them into positive beliefs. We're going to come back to that later. I have a suggestion around changing them into positive beliefs, because if you've tried that and it didn't work for you, there's a reason for that. So I want to come back to that because that's really important, because that's something you hear a lot, is, positive thinking, gratitude, all of great tools that I use as well, but there's a nuance to it that's really important. So we're going to come back to that, right? But you're 100% right, Rosemary, is looking at the subconscious mind and at those deeper beliefs. So, okay. So I'm curious too, how many of you here once you started researching and really understanding about narcissism and toxic relationships and toxic behaviors, you started kind of paying attention to your life and started noticing other unhealthy people, like siblings or coworkers, parents, or maybe you're noticing that like all your friends are the kinds of people who take a lot and don't give very much. And all of a sudden you're like, are there narcissists everywhere? Like, I thought narcissists were only supposed to be like 1% of the population. Okay, so there's a reason. Parents, partners, friends, and your child. Okay, yeah, it's a lot. So this is another thing we're going to touch on, right? Is that you start noticing that there's a lot of toxic people in your life, or unhealthy people or manipulative people. And when you start wanting to kind of be free from that, if you do choose, and not everyone does, and that's fine too, if you do choose to break your relationships with some of these people, all of a sudden you can be very isolated because you've lost Jean put parents, partner, friends, and my child, right? So that's a lot of people. If you don't want unhealthy people in your life, that's a lot of people to let go of. So isolation is really a difficult thing, and being able to find, that's why I'm so glad you all are here today and connecting with this community of people who do understand what you're experiencing, so that you're not so alone in this process and in this healing journey. So as I was saying, there is a reason that there's so many unhealthy people in your life. And we're going to talk about that and how you can actually start magnetizing different kinds of people into your life. Okay. I'm going to now dive into the 5 steps that you can take to start getting unstuck and moving forward. So you may want to take notes as we go through the 5 steps that you can take to move to that place of peace, of freedom, to be free from triggers and ruminations. It's totally possible, y'all. I can go to court now with my ex. The narcissistic personality type will keep fighting you forever. So, people ask me when will it end? It's never going to end as far as their behaviors. But now I'm able to go to court and there's no charge there. It's just like something else I have to do. It's fine. I don't end up in that painful place, in that fear of what the outcome is going to be, of feeling terrible afterwards, right? So that's what we're talking about. We can't control other people's behaviors, but we can absolutely start making a change to how we feel, so that we are not triggered and we're not impacted by the behaviors of all these negative people that you may have in your life. We went through ways that you may be stuck. We're going to go through the 5 steps now. And then I'm also going to share the key thing that most people are not doing that stops you from being able to move forward in your healing. Okay, so the first thing, and is the most, well, I shouldn't say the most important because they're all important, but something that I'm really passionate about, is the first step is laying the foundation to be able to access the subconscious. So as I mentioned earlier, right, there's something deeper, and Rosemary commented on that as well in the chat, right? There's something deeper that is causing you to have all these thoughts, to be triggered into these painful emotions. And you want to be able to access that and get into your subconscious and that programming that you have. And in order to do that, you, as in your subconscious, needs to feel safe. So it's not so much necessarily about safety in other ways, right? If you're in an abusive relationship, you may not feel safe. It is really on a subconscious level, where essentially your body and your mind is giving you permission to be able to go deeper. And we've talked about this before, so I won't go into too much detail about this here today. And if you have questions, let me know again later on in the coaching portion, right? But what happens a lot of times is that we have disconnected from our body and we've disconnected from our emotions. It's not possible to be in an abusive relationship and be connected to your body and be connected to your emotions, because your body is screaming at you to get out, and we shut that off. I absolutely did that. And one of the reasons you've heard me talk about probably my experience of my body completely shutting down, because I had to shut everything off in order to allow myself to stay. So the very first step is to reconnect with your body, with yourself, to have that safety in your emotions, in your body. So that's the very first step. And that's why sometimes you'll hear me talking about that certain things really, you can really only dive into when you're in a certain place in your journey. And so if you're still in a painful relationship, if you're still in an abusive marriage, or living with, especially living with somebody who's really toxic for you, it's going to be very difficult to complete that first step. So the number one thing you need to do is to create space for yourself by leaving the situation. If you're living with that person, so that you can, your body can start being regulated. There's some system regulation that goes into that as well. Okay. So then the second stage is to really allow the negative emotions to come out. So this is the getting to the root of the ruminations. And part of that there's a few different phases to that, but part of that is really allowing the acknowledging the painful emotions that you have. And this is another step that often gets missed in some of the different modalities that are out there. So I mentioned earlier when Rosemary commented about shifting from negative to positive, something that can happen is sometimes the reason gratitude practices or positive affirmations and things like that may not be working is that if you still have all this pain underneath and you're like, I'm going to ignore this pain. I'm curious if this is anyone here. I'm going to ignore this pain and I'm just going to focus on what I'm grateful for. Or I'm going to ignore this pain and I'm going to look in the mirror and say positive affirmations. I'm curious if anyone here has done that. I love gratitude practice, y'all. I have a daily gratitude, not just daily, I do it like all day long. So nothing against gratitude practices at all. Lori says me, right? But people are like, I'm thinking positive. Edith says, yeah. People are like, I'm thinking positive thoughts and I'm saying positive affirmations, and I am about to curse. I am definitely not. I was gonna say, I'm sure as shit not feeling positive. I'm just gonna go out and say it, right? So one of the reasons may be because you have not acknowledged that you have these painful emotions, shame or anger or guilt, grief, whatever it is. So it's really important to give space to those, I'm going to call them negative emotions. I actually don't really consider things to be positive or negative. It is what it is. But to give space and acknowledgement to those shadow emotions. Okay, so that was step 2. If y'all are keeping track, step 1 is being able to lay that foundation. Step 2 is giving space for those shadow emotions. And step 3 is rooting out your imprint. Okay, so this is really identifying that core imprint. So when I was talking about earlier, that if you are triggered into painful emotions, the reason for that is because there is something that's underneath the surface. And if you've done some other modalities that have looked at the top part of your being, then it may be that you're still experiencing these things because you haven't gone deep enough and really looked at what's underneath the surface. So the way that I think of this is that if you are on a boat and you are on a lake, and the lake is your future, it's your freedom, the beautiful bright skies, and it's that place that you want to be. And you're like, hey, I'm loving this lake and I see this thing over there. I see this marina over there that I want to cruise over to because there's a restaurant there, and my friends are over there and I want to go hang out with them. And your boat isn't moving. And you're like, why is my boat not moving? And if you've dropped your anchor overboard and you're like, I'm going to just pull up my anchor and keep on going. But what you don't know is that there's actually a rock that's on top of your anchor and that's keeping it there. And nothing that you do up here on the boat, no tugging and no steering or no putting up the sails or whatever kind of boat you have, no turning on the motor is going to move that boat. Maybe if you have a really strong motor, some of us are really determined, you may move a little bit. But until you find that rock and lift it up and move it, you're not going to be able to keep your boat moving. So I said before that there's a key thing that most modalities are not sharing with you that you need to do in order to be free from triggers and ruminations and to magnetize what you want into your life. And we're going to talk about that next, why this works, why identifying your imprint is actually going to allow you to magnetize what you want into your life. The key thing is that people are not being shown how to identify what their true core imprint is. Once you understand what your imprint is, it is actually your imprint that is keeping you stuck in cycles of ruminations and triggers and attracting or having these negative people or negative relationships in your life. So when you're able to identify your imprint and reprint it, that's when you are able to make these really significant changes. Okay, so that step is identifying your core imprint, and then the next step is reprinting it. Right. So identifying it is really important, but then of course you want to be able to actually shift it. So you might know that there's a rock that's keeping your anchor stuck down in the bottom of the lake, right? And you can see it down there, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm not big enough or strong enough, or I can't hold my breath. I don't have a scuba thing or whatever, right? To be able to go down and actually move it. So being able to reprint it is really important. And here's why you're able to then magnetize different things into your life, or why you find that you have a lot of unhealthy people all around you, right? So remember earlier I said that you aren't being guided to ask the right question. The question is, why did you choose to be in the relationship that you're in? On a subconscious level, y'all, right? I know you all know this. It's not a conscious choice. I mean, it is a conscious choice, but there's also a deeper underlying subconscious reason that you chose to be or stay or continue to be in that relationship. And that reason is connected to your imprint. So if you are in a toxic romantic relationship and now you're finding, oh, my parents, oh, my siblings, oh, my friends, my coworkers are also toxic, it's because that same imprint is connecting with these different types of it's sort of pulling you. It's actually pulling you to engage in those relationships with those people, right? So when you reprint that core imprint that's causing you to have all these unhealthy experiences in your life, you actually start changing that, and it becomes almost effortless. And that's the really beautiful part. And that's why I really focus in my approach on the core imprint and the reprinting, because how many times have you been told, been given sort of a tool for increasing your self-confidence, or you've been given a tool for managing your time better, right? And no matter what you do, you just either can't do it or won't do it. It's not working. You've done it kind of, sort of, and it's not really, you're not really making a change in your life. And when you do the reprinting, it becomes almost effortless to then have a different kind of relationship, to then start your business. For those of you that watched Eric's video, right? He's now inspired to go out and do something. Whereas in the past, you might be inspired, you may want to go out and start your own business, but you can't. And you don't know why. You're just stuck. And it's that core imprint that's keeping you stuck. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients say things like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle. This really amazing person came into my life, and I've never had someone who was so nice to me, who gave to me without me first giving to them, right? How many of you are givers? You're always giving and giving to all the relationships in your life, your friendships, your romantic relationships, right? Or this, yeah, Dave, thumbs up, right? Exactly. Yep. We're giving and giving and giving, and we feel like everyone around us is taking. And you can really start believing, or somebody mentioned limiting beliefs earlier. You might start believing that everybody in the world, or at least everybody in your life, is a taker, right? But again, there's a reason you're in that dynamic. And when you're able to shift that dynamic, you will start seeing different people coming into your life, right? So one that I really loved was my ex. My ex finally signed the divorce agreement. This client had been in a high conflict divorce for 1.5 years. And we had mapped out for her some of these, reprinting some of her programming. This is a true story, and I can't even believe it. It's a true story. 2 days later, y'all, 2 days later, her ex signed the agreement after 1.5 years of being in a high conflict divorce. So this is something that's actually really difficult for me to watch, because I hear so many stories of people being in high conflict divorces for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and paying tens of thousands of dollars to lawyers. And you really believe that if you can just find the right lawyer, or just do something within the legal system, if I spend enough money on the right legal team, or the right court advocate, or the right, whatever, guardian ad litem or therapist, there's all these different tools that you can use, mediator, that you can use within the court system. They're like, if I just spend enough money on this system, then it's going to resolve this fight. And the reality is that it may eventually. It often doesn't, which is why people learn it for 10 years, 12 years. Somebody I talked to recently, 12 years in a high conflict divorce. And the reason is the narcissistic personality type will fight forever. They will fight as long as you are engaged with them. As long as you are in the ring fighting with them, they're going to fight you. They don't really care about the outcome, and they will change the outcome. I wonder how many people have experienced that. The ex is asking for one thing and you negotiate on that, and all of a sudden they want something else, because they will continue to fight you forever. And the way you stop fighting with them is to actually shift yourself, is to shift how you feel about it, is to shift the energy that you're putting into it. And the way you do it, the reason that you're still continuing to engage with your ex, if you're in a high conflict divorce, is connected to that rock that's keeping you anchored. It's connected to that imprint. It's a very difficult concept to understand if you haven't seen it or experienced it. But the reality is, I've seen this over and over again, if you shift that imprint, it actually can, and almost always does, release you from that high conflict divorce process, saving you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. So earlier on, when we were talking about research, right? And being stuck in research, and where is your focus? It's on the X. Where does your focus need to be? It needs to be on yourself. And when you shift that focus from your X onto yourself, all of a sudden, all these things shift and expand. Now, of course, you want that focus on yourself to be focusing on the right thing, right? Because if you're focusing on the wrong thing, you may still not be experiencing that shift. So I started talking about high conflict divorce. I'm going to wrap this up here so we have time for coaching. But so that was if you're keeping track and taking notes, that was step 4, reprint the imprint. And step 5 is actually what I was just starting to talk about, which is actually creating the life that you want. Because when you have these new imprints, you will more effortlessly be able to do these things, whether it's start your business, whether it's being free from that divorce and being able to actually start a relationship. Kids is a whole nother topic I can talk about for hours, but it will shift your experience with your kids. And once you have this new imprint, just like Eric talked about, all of a sudden now, you are wanting to create things in your life, and you're able to do it more effortlessly because you're not losing time to triggers and ruminations, but also you naturally have now that confidence and that trust to do what it is that you are wanting to do. So that's the fifth step is being able to use that new imprint that you created to be able to actually create the life that you want. Okay, so those are the five stages. Okay, so if you're somebody who is ready to make these kind of changes, to walk through these 5 steps, if you're ready to be done giving all of your time and money to your ex, right? And you want to actually be free to step into that confidence, step into that peace and that trust so you can create the life that you want. Then I'm going to share some next steps for you that you can take in order to be able to do that. So if you are ready, is there anyone here who's like, hell yeah? Put hell yeah in the chat if you're like, I am ready to walk through these 5 steps and be free from the pain, free from the ruminations, and be able to create this beautiful life. Allow your boat to be free of that rock and cruising around on that lake. I know there's a delay on my messenger. I ask a question, then like a few minutes later, I'll get responses. So I'm just going to keep going, but type a hell yeah if you're ready for some next steps. Okay, so these 5 steps that I just talked about is exactly, is what I walk you through personally in a program that I have that's starting in February. So enrollment for that is open right now. It's actually only open until Friday. So if you are interested in this, you want to jump on that and get enrolled in the next couple days. And if you want to enroll, we've got a couple people here who are enrolled in the program. So y'all already know about it. And yeah, Edith says she's glad that she's in it. Yeah, so happy to have you. So if you want to enroll, you can do that in 2 different ways. You can just send me an email and I'll get you all the information. I know there's a couple other people here who emailed me. So if you have questions, you can send me an email. I just put an email put my email in the chat box. If you've already gotten information from me, I know a couple of you here have, just email me for the registration and I will go ahead and send you the registration link. If you have questions, you can book a call with me and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. No pressure, right? If you've heard me talk before, if you've talked with me on a phone call, I only want what's going to help you and be a good fit for you. So if you have questions, jump on a call with me. I'm going to be honest with you. I've told people when I think it's not a good fit for them, for whatever reason, they're just in a different place in their life right now. So I do have a couple openings right after this for phone calls to answer your questions. And I also have a couple openings tomorrow. I believe I have a couple openings tomorrow and maybe Friday too. I'm not sure. I think there's a few openings in there. So I just put that in the chat box, my calendar booking link. So if you are thinking that you might be interested in being walked through these 5 phases to get you to that place of freedom, but you're not sure, go ahead and grab a call. This next part is not going to be recorded, so I'm going to take a moment to say goodbye to my replay watchers. So if you're a replay watcher, thank you for watching. The coaching portion of today's session is not going to be included in the replay in order to maintain the privacy of those who do share. So thank you so much, replay watchers, and I look forward to chatting with those of you that are here.